He let out a low, mourning howl that chilled Mark to the bone. Inside the van, Megan was nowhere to be found. Instead, Jamie Bregman was slumped over the steering wheel. He was dead, his eyes staring blankly at the dashboard. Single stab wound to the chest, Sarah noted 20 minutes later, her voice tight as she knelt in the cramped space of the van. Precise. Professional. This wasn't a crime of passion, Mark. This was an execution. Look at this, Mark said, pointing to a small, glinting object on the floor mat. Is that metal? Sarah used a pair of tweezers to lift a tiny shard. It's chromium, industrial grade. And there's no blood in the van other than what's on Jamie. He wasn't killed here. He was killed in a shop, a garage, or a factory, and then moved. As they returned to the precinct, they were met by Todd, a senior partner at Megan's law firm who had been assisting with the internal investigation into missing escrow accounts. I told you Jamie was unstable, Todd said, his voice dripping with full concern. We found irregularities in the accounts he was managing. Millions of dollars, detective. We think Megan found out. And he snapped. But as Todd walked away, Rex let out a sharp, distrustful growl. Mark watched the lawyers retreating back. Rex doesn't like him, and neither do I. Jesse. Run Todd's financials. Not just his bank accounts. I want his offshore holdings, his shell companies, everything. The break came at 2 a.m. Jesse burst into the lab, his eyes bloodshot. Mark. Todd isn't just a lawyer. He's the one who was stealing the money. Jamie didn't take it. He was the one who flagged the irregularities to the HR department. Todd killed him to shut him up, then kidnapped Megan to make it look like Jamie was the one on the run. Where would he take her? Sarah asked, her heart hammering. The machine shop, Mark said, remembering the chromium shards. Todd's family used to own a metallurgical plant in the East End. It's been vacant for years. The confrontation at the machine shop was a descent into a mechanical hell. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and rust. Mark and Rex moved through the shadows of giant, dormant presses. Rex, find her, Mark whispered. Rex took off, his paws silent on the grease-stained floor. He stopped in front of a heavy, soundproofed office door in the back of the warehouse. He didn't bark. He just leaned against the door, his body tense. Mark kicked the door open. Inside, Megan Schaefer was duct-taped to a chair, her eyes wide with terror. Todd stood behind her, a high-caliber pistol pressed to her temple. Don't move, Hudson, Todd screamed. I have $2 million in a bag and a flight to the Caymans in 3 hours. I'm not letting a dog and a washed-out detective stop me. It's over, Todd, Mark said, his voice as cold as the Atlantic. The silver van, the chromium shards. We have it all. Drop the gun. Todd's finger tightened on the trigger. In that split second, Mark saw the lawyer's focus waver. Rex, now. Rex was a blur of black and tan. He launched himself off a desk, his teeth sinking into Todd's gun hand. The weapon discharged into the ceiling as Todd went down, screaming. Mark was on him in a heartbeat, his knee in Todd's back, the cold steel of handcuffs clicking shut. As Sarah helped Megan out of the building, the first rays of dawn were breaking through the street John's fog. Mark stood by the truck, his chest heaving. Sarah walked up to him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You did it, she whispered. We did it, he corrected her, pulling her into a brief, fierce hug. For a moment, the world stopped spinning. Then Rex pushed his cold nose between them, and they both laughed, the darkness of the night finally beginning to recede. Chapter 4. The Yacht and the Spear. The peace was short-lived. A city like Street John's, built on the bones of sailors and the secrets of the sea, always had another tragedy waiting in the wings. Jacob Kaufman, a billionaire venture capitalist from Toronto, had been found dead on his luxury yacht, Best Kind, moored in the harbor. The murder was theatrical and brutal. He had been pinned to the mahogany deck by a heavy-duty spear gun. He was a predator. Captain Michel Sorocco told Mark as they stood on the pristine deck. He bullied his staff, he humiliated his business partner, and he treated his wife like a piece of furniture. Honestly, detective, The list of people who didn't want him dead is much shorter. Mark walked the perimeter of the yacht, Rex sniffing at the salt-crusted railings. Rex stopped at the stern, his tail dipping low, barking at the dark water below. "What is it, pal?" Mark asked, kneeling beside him. "Mark, look at the spear," Sarah said, joining them. She was already wearing her forensic gloves, examining the metal shaft protruding from Kaufman's chest. "The spear is covered in seawater and specific ocean bacteria, but Kaufman was killed hours after the yacht was docked. Whoever did this didn't bring the spear on board. They came from the water, fired from below the waterline, and climbed aboard to finish the job." The investigation revealed a hidden motive far more lucrative than simple revenge. Kaufman, a tech-averse Luddite in public, was a secret cryptocurrency whale. He had hidden hundreds of millions of dollars in digital wallets. "The key is a 64-digit hexadecimal access code," Jesse explained back at the precinct. And according to his business partner, Veronica Goodwin, Kaufman was so paranoid he never wrote it down. But he had a watch, Mark remembered. A reproduction of a 1966 gold diving watch. His wife said he never took it off, except when he slept. "And the watch is missing," Sarah added. Along with the mahogany case it was kept in. Andrea Kaufman, the wife, says it was purely sentimental. "But I'm betting that code is engraved on the inside of the casing." The prime suspect was Blaine Selby, a deckhand with a criminal record for burglary, who had vanished right after the body was found. But Rex's nose led them in a different direction. During a second sweep of the yacht, Rex began scratching at a ventilation grate in the master suite. Behind the metal slats, tucked into the ductwork, was the mahogany case. But it was empty. "Someone beat us to it," Mark muttered. Suddenly, the door to the suite clicked shut. Veronica Goodwin stood there, a silenced pistol held with practiced ease. Her face, usually a mask of corporate professionalism, was now twisted with a cold, calculating greed. "I spent 10 years building Jake's empire while he played the genius for the cameras." She spat. "I was the one who suggested the crypto. I was the one who set up the accounts. I'm not letting his trophy wife, or a petty thief like Blaine, walk away with my retirement." "You killed him," Mark said, stepping in front of Rex. "And you killed Endicott, the software engineer who was helping you with the scam." "Endicott was a coward," Veronica shrugged. "He used his cousin's tourboat to get close to the yacht, but he couldn't handle the pressure. Now, detective, give me the watch. I know Blaine gave it to you." "I don't have it," Mark said, his eyes locking onto Rex's. "But I have something better. Rex, tackle." The dog was a thunderbolt. He dove through the air, his weight slamming into Veronica's chest before she could level the gun. The pistol clattered across the floor as they went down in a tangle of limbs and fur. Mark was on her in an instant, securing her hands. Later, on the docks, Mark found Sarah watching the sunrise over the Atlantic. The water was a deep, bruised purple. "He died for a string of numbers," Sarah said, her voice small. "Millions of dollars. And he ended up pinned to a deck like a specimen." Mark stepped up behind her, his hands resting tentatively on her waist. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned back, her head resting on his shoulder. "Some people can't see the value in things that aren't digital, Sarah." "And you, Mark? What do you value?" she asked, turning to face him. Mark didn't answer with words. He leaned down, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that tasted of salt and coffee, and a promise he was finally ready to keep. It was the first time they had truly let the walls down. And as Rex let out a soft, approving huff, the harbor felt a little less cold. Chapter 5. Blood and Botanicals. The scent of juniper was normally a source of pride for the Devereaux family, the masters of Street John's most famous distillery. But today, it was overshadowed by the metallic, cloying tang of fresh blood. Willem Devereaux, the iron-fisted patriarch of the company, had been found dead. He hadn't just been murdered, he had been drowned in a vat of his own experimental gin blend. It was a cruel irony for a man who had spent 40 years building a legacy on Mother's ruin. He was about to make a big announcement, Jesse told Mark, as they navigated the forest of copper stills. His children